Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Tuesday's edition, and we're broadcasting from Southern California and from the great state of Connecticut. Joe Visconti, welcome back. Happy to have you with me today.
Thanks for having me, and I've got my Fetterman hoodie on. That's it for me. No more suits. I'm wearing a hoodie. I'm running for president with a hoodie on.
Oh, it's great. We're going to have a little bit of fun today, Joe. We're going to do some. We're going to go through a lot of stuff today for our viewers and listeners today, but let's start off with this. Okay, Republicans now are one seat away from winning the United States House of Representatives. Never in my wildest dreams I think it would be this close. But we are where we are right now. It's 217-205, 13 races left to call, Joe, and in those races, Democrats are up 9, Republicans are up 4. One race is too tight. It's 80 votes apart. So give me your thoughts on where we are right now, Joe. I mean, the predictions are sort of there, but tell me where we are.
I think that's actually better. I mentioned this on this show last week. Back in 2010, when we gave Paul Ryan and Boehner and Eric Cantor all those wins, they just ran away with it all. I think the Congress is going to have to stay very close to the pulse of what the Republican Party wants, the people, and they're going to have to stick together and not overshoot the runway. There isn't going to be wild. If I lose these 2 votes, then I got these other guys' vote. All those shenanigans and game playing that are so Washington. They're not going to be able to do that. You get a couple breakaway Republicans that decide they want to go the other way if we're within 3 or 4, and we could have the problem we've always had in the Senate.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You know, Republicans are meeting today. Well, first, let me go back on these numbers just a little bit. And, Joe, I got to tell you, I was doing this morning. It's not on the agenda, but I wanted to share some stuff with you. My final post-mortem of the election from 1 week ago. And pardon me, folks, but I'm going to go over some of the notes that we're talking about here by some of the prognosticators. Larry Sabato's crystal ball. Well, it wasn't exactly so crystal, was it? Projected 24 House seats, and Walker and Oz would win. Well, that didn't happen. Oz lost, and Walker's in a runoff, and we're not winning 24. It looks like we're going to be at 10. Okay. Wall Street Journal, Republicans to pick up 17% of the black vote, 45% of the Hispanic vote. Closer, but still off by about 5 points on each one of them. Real Clear Politics, Republicans +3 in the Senate, 31 in the House, Joe Visconti. Weren't even 2 governors' races. Wrong, not even close. Ron Johnson extends his lead in Wisconsin to 6. He eked out a 1-point win, which was nice. You and I actually talked about this. Is Laxalt really up 5 to 6 points in Nevada? I put a big question mark. I said, that doesn't make sense to me. But that's what the pollsters told us. Oh, and here's some goodies, Joe. Here's the really goodies. Arizona's tied, New Hampshire's tied, and Washington State are within 2 points. Wrong. Oh, my God. And again, you and I talked about some of this. Walker surges in Georgia. Can he hit 50%? Wrong. That didn't happen. There were only 2 things that actually were right. Ted Budd in North Carolina and J.D. Vance in Ohio, the prognosticators got those pretty accurate. They said Budd would win 3 to 4 points, which is where he did, and J.D. would win by about 8, which is sort of where he did. They called Kemp's governor's race right. DeSantis and Rubio were underestimated, winning by 10 to 12. They got, did way better. And then the misreading, Joe, on the electorate, where we said, no, Democrats, they don't really, abortion, come on. Joe, I'm not trying to criticize the prognosticators, of which you and I are part of that class, but this was so wrong on so many fronts, it was not even close.
Well, the polling defied common sense because the American public has lost common sense. We're now in Trump didn't help us, and I love him, but he didn't help us the last 2 weeks. He needed to disappear. And so that was one little factor. Democracy's on the ballot. We're going to shoot everybody on like January 6th if we don't win. The abortion, the college, young kids getting free college tuition.
Right.
I mean, they played it right, and then we played it as though the polls mean we're going to win big, and half our public probably stayed home because they thought they didn't need the vote. We were going to win so big, and that was, there's a million factors, and still a lot of those races were lost very little.
Very close. Very close.
I blamed it on a couple shows today that I know that are happening here in Connecticut and happen everywhere. And that is the Republicans don't trickle down the money that they pull in to feed and to pay their volunteers. They don't staff up. We'll lose again. We'll never win. I don't care who the candidate is in any race if we don't start doing what the Democrats do and actually spend the money down all the way down the ballot and all the way down to the volunteers. I mean, I can name 25 people that basically ran Leora's campaign and other campaigns on the outside. We were invited in and we didn't care because we're activists, but we know who was around not getting paid. And there was money, but it never goes to those people, and they burn out. And they burn out on all your campaigns. So the fact is, Republicans are going to need to bring the money down to the labor force. It's like we've got child labor, it really means. I'm going to tell you something. It is the key to the future. You got to bring that money down to the people and pay volunteers. No longer volunteers. Get them working. Yeah. And I have examples on the show here, but I've walked into so many headquarters and I watched what was going on. Nobody's doing anything. They're hoping and they're wishing. They're putting the Christmas lights up in November after Thanksgiving with a bag of cash thinking they're going to win, where the Democrats have been building toys and building Christmas out since January the past year. You can't run a 2-3 month campaign. You've got to really go all in all year long. And that takes money, and it's all staying up in the head organism of the politics. It's staying up here in media and all the experts. It's not going down. Democrats are beating us on the ground, pure and simple.
That's an interesting piece. And I'll tell you something I've done some pretty deep analysis on. Republicans are going to have to do something that we learned how to do in Florida, which is handle mail-in ballots. I mean, in Florida, Joe, Republicans beat the Democrats in the early voting on mail-in ballots because we know how to do it in Florida. Yeah. It's getting better here in California, where, Republicans complained about ballot harvesting. Well, you know what? They finally learned how to do it. They're not as good as the Democrats, but they are taking steps to catch up. So I compliment the California Republican Party, and there's some success there. And in New York, there was some success. But the rest of the country, oof.
Well, it's going to become a swing. On the national races, it will become only swing state, pure and simple. It's going to be a swing state, and not only money in the swing state coming from McConnell, whoever. It's got to be real people working, really working, and they're not working. They're showing up. Tons of volunteers don't know what they're doing. The staffs aren't trained. I don't want to reveal names of people that I watch.
No, of course not. Of course not.
I've seen it. I've watched it all during these races. Right. And those that are working their heart out for free are burning out. And then they move south. They get tired up here in the north or in California, and they leave. So every year or two, we're losing more and more of those hard work volunteers. Not that they want to make money on it, but then maybe they get a pizza once a month. They get nothing, and they burn out. The candidates fail, go the other way. And so it's the swing states. We need to, set up mobile homes and stuff in the swing states.
Well,
this is a construction site. We're waiting for volunteers to build the building.
I'm going to be speaking to a friend of mine who was actually volunteering in Arizona and get his perspective on what was going on in that state. But again, we do need to figure out, Joe, mail-in voting. We can't start the game with Democrats having 100,000 vote leads. And, that happened in Pennsylvania. Before a vote was counted, Fetterman was up 100,000. So,
Well, what's happened, this is COVID caused this, pure and simple. Gave the Democrats the ability to use an emergency, and now they're making it permanent. Ballot harvesting in Nevada is permanent. And why are they doing that? And this is important. I said it on your show once. I've been repeating it like everywhere I go. government interference in our elections, pure and simple. The government isn't out there knocking on doors and asking people, sending mailers out for them to register to get a firearm. Are they with that right to carry a gun? No. Why are they leaning on the scale, trying to increase turnout? Oh, so people will pay their taxes and be part of the process? It's not your job to do that, especially in districts that are red or too blue. Stay out of it. Post the dates and the locations of the election. By law, that's all you're supposed to do. But you want to increase turnout, and you want to get them and you make it this whole thing. It's government interference in elections. Now you're asking we need to do what they're doing.
Well,
So
I am advocating it absolutely because I'm a pragmatist.
Right.
I am a pragmatist because if we don't, look, the rules are what the rules are, and I agree with you. You know, they were changed after COVID. They're not going back. You know, we have mail-in voting. Some states have been doing it for a while. I mean, Arizona's done it. Nevada's done it for a while. Very few impropriety. Florida has mail-in voting. You can vote in Florida mail-in. You can drop it at the drop box. You can go in person and vote. And guess what? Florida counted all those votes, and they had all the results early. I mean,
the other thing, on Tucker's show the other night, you may have caught this. They had a journalist, and he had about 6 to 10 voters write their name in and write it, but use his signature the way he writes. Completely different. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah, I heard that, but I'm not putting a whole lot of credibility. To be honest with you,
I think a lot of stuff will surface, and if there's bugs that have to be taken out, the bugs will be taken out this last cycle. In the next year, any bugs that existed will be found, discovered, and so it'll be a better race next time. But you're right. If we don't do the mail-in,
we got to figure it out. You can't start in Pennsylvania. I mean, you hit the key piece, Joe, when you says the six, 7 swing states. And look, let's call it what it is. Going into 2024, 43 states, there's not even going to be a campaign, likely. Maybe 42. Call it 42 states. But you're going to have basically a race boiled down to Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona,
Nevada,
maybe North Carolina, could be 7.
We've got some Senate seats that'll come up, and some House runs again, but some Senate seats.
What I'm saying, 7 is those states are going to determine. Now on the Senate side, Republicans have a layup map. I mean, they have literally no one's going to be in danger of losing on the Republican side. They don't. The seats they defend are in ruby red states. And Democrats have a tough map that they're going to have some seats they got to defend in red state. Their map in 2024 is going to be like ours was this year. But my point is this, Joe, and you were spot on. We're not going to have a 50-state election coming up in 2024. It's 7 states, maybe 8 if you count Carolina. Throw in New Hampshire, maybe. But you're talking 6.
New Hampshire, I've been up there a lot, worked for the Trump campaign. And I've been up there the last couple of years. It's not far from me. A lot of people have moved in from Boston, a lot of liberals.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hippies up there, old hippies. I mean, I did phone banks for months up there. And I can tell you, they're fatigued with the phone calls from campaigns. Some of them vote against candidates because they're so angry. You can't believe the phone calls. Hi, I'm calling from the Trump campaign. I'm sick and tired of you people calling me. I mean, those poor people.
There's got to be a more effective way to do it. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. All right, let's get into some now that we've done our little postmortem. All right, Republicans are meeting today. Let's talk about this. Kevin McCarthy brought in. They won 14 seats in 2020 when Biden was elected. That's odd in itself, and they're going to pick up about 10 or 11 this time. Okay. McCarthy raised the dough, financed a lot of these things. Again, my opinion, I don't know if you share it or not, I think it's insane for people to be opposing him at this point. I think it makes us look like fools. The Democrats, when they win, they have their factions just like we do, but they get behind their speaker, their leader. And we don't do that. I mean, we got a bunch of guys in the Freedom Caucus who some of them I like personally. I'm scratching my head going, what in the hell are these guys doing?
I remember when
help me out here, Joe, because to me this should be a layup. Kevin McCarthy. Why is Andy Biggs running against Kevin McCarthy?
So here's my take on it. Kevin McCarthy was squishy years ago. Paul Ryan was very powerful. Paul still has his ear. He's always good. That's the way the old speakers are. But he's got really polished. And you need that personality to raise the money. You're
Right.
not going to use that 500 or $500 million with a personality that's all left or all right, anything. You've got to have a personality that understand when it comes time for leadership now, when he's in the leadership position to govern. It'll be easy to raise money, but he'll be able to. This is why I said with the small win, he's going to need to really define. That's why he has that contract he put out. Stick to it, hone it, get it down to some simpler talking points for the general public to buy in, and keep his team together. Yeah, he'll win, and he should win.
Yeah.
I've been watching him. He's matured. He's his own man at this point. Everybody else that was leading him. He's the full-time quarterback now. He's not second, third string that was filling in. That feeling you had, he didn't know what he was doing, or somebody was telling him what to do. That's gone.
Look, I agree with some of the points that Biggs and some of the Freedom Caucus guys are saying, but when a guy like Matt Gaetz, who I like personally, comes out and says, I'm not voting for him, what an asshole. I mean, the guy's a jerk. You can't do stuff like that, especially after you just, as a party, we underperformed. And again, I like all these guys' positions, but what they're doing to the party right on the eve of an election that we barely won, it is insane, Joe. I'm like pulling my hair out saying, what are these clowns doing? I mean, it's
people are jockeying positions for chairmanship in certain committees. There's a lot of backstory stuff we don't know that's going on.
Right.
And so this is what happens when you don't have and you don't want an iron fist leader. But the Freedom Caucus is doing what they have to do. If they didn't do what they did at all, we get nothing. Yeah. So they always got to be.
One thing I support really important that the Freedom Caucus is advocating, Joe, which seems like a reasonable position to take. No bills will be passed until they're read. You got to have 48 hours to read the damn bill.
Beat up Trump over that when we got elected and he passed the bill. I said, I've been out here for years yelling, read the bill, Tea Party rallies, and you're not going to read the bill? You're making me look like a fool. I'm going to erase my conscience. Wow, we rallied on that. We got out in the rain for days and years of rallying and doing what the Dems do? Come on.
I agree with Andy Biggs and some of the guys in the Freedom Caucus on that one. But, I mean, this idea that you can vacate the speaker's chair, I mean, that is insane. We don't want a weak speaker dealing with these Democrats. Look, our margin with the Dems, if it turns out to be 220 to 215, which it looks like it may be, if we get one more, fantastic. But their margin when they started with us 2 years ago, 220, 215. That's what it was. They had a 5-vote margin. And, Joe, whether we like it or not, they passed some bills and they got some business done. We don't agree with it, but they did do stuff. Our side has to be cognizant of that. And one thing I hope will happen if McCarthy is Speaker, I don't mind having an investigation. That's fine. But we cannot spend all our time investigate. We've got to actually do things for the American people if we hope to retain that majority.
Well, I think Romney came out saying don't do investigations on Biden. I think pure and simple, they can be done and they should be done for Biden and his son and the big guy and all that stuff. It has to be done. It's the red meat of the right. You'll lose all of us on the right. We won't come out.
I'm not saying
but they can do it smart. They don't have to do it in front of TV cameras. Right. They can do a lot of hard work in committees. We don't need to see that. I don't want to swear on your show. You don't need to see that.
I know what you mean. I know.
Okay? You don't need to see it. If you come out and you finally got goods, why is this important? Because we have a low level of expectations. What happened to the what's his name investigation? Who's that guy? I can't even remember his name.
John Durham.
Yeah, the Durham is gone. So we've been shucked and jived and misdirection on us so much. You know what? Have your meetings, dig it up, show us what you find, and then go on TV. If you don't find anything, don't waste my time.
Right.
I don't want to.
Right. And recognize it. Yeah, I'm with you on that too. All right, let's get into a couple other things happening here. Okay, Katie Hobbs, Joe. I mean, honest to goodness, she beats Carrie Lake 50.4 to 49.6. Hobbs never debated her in Arizona governor's race. Joe, this is, I got to tell you something, of every state where there was polling, this has got to be the one that they blew the most. I mean, they had Carrie Lake up 8 to 10 points a couple weeks before the election. And
Yeah.
she ends
Yeah.
up losing to this Secretary of
Well,
State. I mean,
all I can say, you did have anomalies there. You'll see. We'll figure that out, and whether the people didn't vote that couldn't vote in the Republican areas. You've got the governor candidate overseeing your own count, which is conflict of interest. I mean, he just made it all, stick it in your face. And then you'd have Liz Cheney, who has been trolling Carrie Lake on Twitter, saying thank you. And so there's been a lot of bad blood there.
yeah.
But again, waiting a week to get ballots in, this is about the mistrust. Really, even if there's no fraud or blah, when you get 2,500 votes, there's not a lot of mistakes that need to be made to
Well,
pull it
she's
over.
20,000. She's right now down, was it 20 something thousand votes? I mean, it's not 2,500. She's like 20,000 votes ahead.
Last I saw was 2,500. Maybe I read it wrong.
Yeah,
Maybe it was.
no, it's fit. She's up by a point, and no, it's more than that. No, we'll have to go back and we'll verify what those numbers are. But when I looked at it
They're still
earlier,
counting, by the way. They're still counting,
oh
even though they
yeah,
called.
yeah, they are still counting. It's not, and it's not. Again, it's the race has been called. But my point is this: I mean, she was supposed to win by 8 to 10 points, and well-known media figure. But what's happening now, Joe, is everybody's piling on. The election deniers, all that kind of crap going on. But anyhow, it was just shocking to me because Hobbs had refused to debate. She would not debate, and the people in Arizona, look, they're going to have to live with their governor. That's going to be their business. But it is some of a situation where now in Arizona, think about this: was a John McCain red state? It was a purple. It became a purple state. Joe, I don't know if you can call it a purple state anymore. Blake Masters got beat by 4. We've lost 3 consecutive Senate seats. There's 2 Democrats that represent Arizona, and now you got a Democratic governor.
You got people from California coming over, still voting like California. I don't care. They go to Florida, they're voting the same way. They don't move out of state and turn Republican. I don't care what anybody says. They've been flooded, and that data will come out in a year or so, and you'll see it's close. But the reality is that the public is voting. The public is on the issues. They have blamed Putin for the gas, even though gas was $5 for a year before. They are blaming COVID for the inflation. They're blaming Trump for the border wall. I mean, they see something and they call it something else. This is a problem when you're going to vote, no matter who, no matter how much you're suffering, and you're still going to call it someone else because you are that obstinate. What does that tell you about the voters? That's what I'm worried.
Well, what it tells you about the voters, they did not blame Joe Biden for the problems of the country in local House elections or senatorial elections. He got none of the blame, and some people
They'll blame Trump for everything. They'll blame Trump for everything.
They did. Let's talk about Trump. All right, he's going to make his announcement tonight. Okay. I think you know my opinion on it. I don't know if I disagree with you. He's upside down 30 to 36 points among independent voters, Joe. Yes, he's got a great base of support in our party. But I'll ask you a direct question, because I know you're a huge Trump supporter, and I voted for him twice. I supported him too. But Joe, what is this going to do tonight after he announces that he's running for president? Give me your, the analytical point on what's going to happen.
Well, I've been scouring social media, my walls. I got 5 or 6 groups, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. And I've been, just reading comments everywhere. And the public that likes Trump, they're breaking away because they can't take defending him. They can't take losing anymore. So they'll go along and vote, but there won't be if he's the candidate, but they're not enthusiastic about it. In my opinion, he is going to need to renovate. If this was one of his country clubs, he's going to need to renovate that country club and tear down half of what he's got. And if he can't do it, he's going to get run over. Maybe he'll be the candidate, and I love him, but he'll be run over. And I don't mean mean tweets. I love when he hits when he should hit. But some of the things when he's hitting the Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, insane. I mean, hitting DeSantis and Glenn Youngkin, 2 of our stars, and he does
nobody
that.
Wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that show right now.
No.
And there's some things that DeSantis has done behind the scenes. And, Trump, he's not going to let you get away with like this much, okay? That's how he is. But I don't think DeSantis is going to get in the game. He's been taking money, and he's got a lot of the Never Trumpers and everybody, who they are, giving him and run. I don't think unless Trump, something happens to him in his health, that he's not going all in. I think DeSantis would be smart to raise money for the party across the whole country as a star, or govern the state of Florida, raise money. If something happens to Trump next year, then get in the race. If nothing happens bad, then stay on the sidelines. But Trump is going to be asking him to, disavow, say you're not running. And he's going to be pressing them. And I think
he's not stupid like Trump to take that bait. I mean, he's going to govern the state of Florida.
He did say it's noise today. DeSantis came out and said, because they asked him, he said that's a lot of noise. I'm focusing on Florida.
As he should. That's exactly right. And same thing with Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. Glenn Youngkin may run. He'd be a great candidate. I mean, the guy flipped the blue state red. I mean, we didn't have any of that success in this election, Joe. So I don't know. So you think, is this going to be a positive for the party, or is Trump leading us down the wrong path?
He was never wrong about anything. It was always his delivery.
Right. Agreed.
And his delivery, the problem with the delivery is like your parents come home, this, and your sister or brother hit you and you hit him back, and they walked in and you hit him back. And they didn't see the first part. That's been the whole electorate. He never hit anybody. He tries to be friends on that. My best friend, my friend. He loves it. But when you hit him, the public never saw him get hit. They only see him hit back. And that's politics. That's national.
Yeah.
But I think if Jared, I'll predict this, if Jared and Ivanka aren't on stage with him, we're talking about it, then he'll be on stage himself tonight. He doesn't want to show non-immunity. And so those in his close circle around him and his family are very important to him. And I think he's very vulnerable right now, where they're telling him, I don't know how they tell him, but if you don't, I don't want to say clean up your act, but really be yourself, but don't be hitting our party. Our people in our party. I think the kids have told him that. And I think this whole weekend at the wedding, from what I'm reading and seeing, the little snippets coming out, sources close to the event who don't want to be right, they're saying it. That'll make her, he will either destroy himself or he'll be able to lead us forward.
Yeah, I concur. And there is plenty of time for other candidates to get in.
3 months. By January, if he's not on the right path, then you're going to see a horde. Remember I said that. You'll see everybody jumping in.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let me give a little footnote here. I normally don't like to talk about a local race, but I got to share this with our viewers and listeners across the country. We had in Los Angeles, we had a mayor's race out here. The two candidates were Karen Bass, formerly of the House of Representatives. She was in a leadership position. And Rick Caruso, who was a billionaire developer. Caruso spent over $100 million on the race. There was commercials everywhere for Caruso. You very rarely saw a Karen Bass commercial. Caruso talked about the issues that were most important to LA voters, according to surveys, which were crime and homelessness. Big problems out in Los Angeles. Karen Bass campaigned on abortion. I kid you not. And abortion's not an issue in the city of Los Angeles. You want an abortion? There's thousands of places you can go get it. It's a non-issue in the state of California. As of right now, she's up 52-48 on Caruso, 29,000 votes. Joe, what does that tell you about this?
Well, that happened here in Connecticut. We haven't codified abortion in our Constitution, and they ran it out here. And they brought the women out that wanted it because they were angry that it's not a right. Listen, there's a lot of willful people that don't want to think anything is a sin or evil anymore. And everybody wants to do what they want, and they don't want to be told, especially on the left. And so the Supreme Court or God Almighty is telling them they're wrong, they're going to have their backup in this willful whatever. And is psychology. But it's not psychology of 10 years ago. If you tried this in the country 10 years ago, it wouldn't work. Things that are happening that never happened.
Yeah.
I don't care what the issue is.
Well, here's the crazy thing about Karen Bass. The candidate was actually a victim of a burglary this year in her house. So I don't know. I mean, you got one guy talking about the issues that LA voters said was most important. It's insane what's happening here.
Everybody's lined up. It's Red Sox, Yankees. That's what it is. They've all.
You either put the red uniform on or the blue, yeah. and there's not very few independents in Los Angeles. All right, Biden's at 42% approval rating post-election. I don't know, Joe. It just doesn't seem to matter.
I don't believe that. You know what? I'm not believing polls anymore.
No, I know that, but that's consistent. That's not Republican Democrat. That's pretty consistent. All right, couple other things here. Um, the Biden, Joe, what do you make of this? Okay, the election's over. Biden says, well, we're going to be tough in the border. And Mayorkas fires the guy who's like Commissioner Chris Mangus is his name. If they put Mangus's picture up there and the name scapegoat underneath it, I mean,
Well,
this
again,
guy was a radical liberal. He was for open borders. Everything the Biden administration wanted, Mayorkas wanted, and Mayorkas fires the guy.
yeah, well, because again, this goes to that psychology I was telling you about. It's what do they call it? It's opposite day. So they run against something, they blame it on something else, and then eventually they got to come back because Biden had to come back and go, we better do something with this border. But they can't win on truth or reality or normal. They win on twisted, and then they come back and they do it, and then they'll throw their own under the bus.
Yeah, it's made. I was just astonished, and I heard a Democrat come out. Well, of course we're for oil drilling. But we want more oil. I'm thinking, yeah. Producer price index came out today up 0.2%, but it was less than expected. The market really rallied this morning. Now it's tapered off some, but inflation at the producer level is still at 8%, Joe. And now you're hearing Democrats saying, well, we're really going to tackle this inflation issue. So whether it's inflation, the border, crime, all of a sudden those issues, now that we survived democracy and everybody knows they can get an abortion, but my God, we're going to tackle these issues now. Joe, it's Groundhog Day.
Yeah, get ready for some big program that they're going to develop in the next 2 weeks. Thanksgiving right after, and they're going to push for the budget, continuing spending, huge amounts of money, huge government spending is coming in the next 60 days or less. It's just coming.
Lame duck. You're talking about While the Lame Duck's yeah.
They're gonna just push for it. They'll just keep spending, government spending, and hopefully they can, feed that back into the economy. And what you don't have written down here is Biden meeting China.
Yeah, no, I didn't put that down because I didn't really. What do you say about it? I mean, Biden didn't show up at the G20 dinner.
Well, look at the way he walked towards Z. Look at the way he walked in his face. The chairman of their party's face was like, I got to deal with this guy. It was like a sitcom. You could read his face so disinterested, like he had things to do. The only thing he didn't do, Z, was look at his watch.
I know.
When Biden,
it's astounding. And when the reporters pressed the White House and the staff, hey, where's Biden? What? Well, it's been a long day. We put a lid on. Our president couldn't even go to the dinner of the G20. It is crazy.
It's now become very clear that the president doesn't run the country. The Democrat Party probably doesn't run the country. They just run voting with issues. And we've got a bunch of Rhodes Scholars and deep state players that are making a State Department that are making all the policies. Maybe Obama's doing it. It doesn't matter who it is, whether Obama and Valerie Jarrett behind the scenes. I don't know what
Valerie Jarrett, Anita Dunn, Ron Klein. I don't know, but it's like they tell Biden what to do and he does it. And I mean, our president couldn't show up for that. The reason I didn't put it on, I don't know, what do I say about it? I mean,
what you say is it's so obvious today to anyone who has a thinking brain that the way the world really works. They're showing you the way the world works. Oh. Your vote doesn't matter. They're going to do what they want.
Well, don't say that, Joe Visconti.
Your vote doesn't matter if you're a Democrat. They're going to do what they want. If you thought you were getting this, tomorrow they'll fire your guy and they'll give you something else.
Oh, boy. All right, a couple other breaking news here. I mean, I'm going to go in reverse order here. The Iranian parliament decides they're going to pass a law and execute 15,000 protesters. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But it just shows you the type of people we're dealing with here. And Joe, late-breaking story right before we went on the air, Russian missiles that hit cities in Ukraine, a lot in civilian areas. Well, one of those missiles crossed over into Poland and killed 2 people. That's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I don't, as winter comes on, it's starting to get cold now. It's cold over there. I think I mentioned on one show, I watched Brady play Sunday. and in Germany, and it was cold, and they were wearing coats and stuff, and so it's going to be cold, and a lot of things can happen right now. Hopefully, that our generals and the people that are in control don't get us into a third world war. That's all I care about.
Yeah, we definitely don't need that. But that was not good news, especially it's such a news breaking story. I can't really comment anything else on it, but that did happen earlier. So, all right, Joel, parting comments. You got 30 seconds. Where do we go from here after Trump makes this announcement tonight?
Well, I think the dust he'll kick up the dust. The world will react, and it becomes the Trump show. But he's going to have to add a couple new shticks. He's going to have to do something different than he's done before. People aren't going to buy the old show. It's America can't go from 2015 when he launched, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. It's 8 years right now. Next year's 9 years. 2024 is 10 years. And if he gets 4 years, that's 14 years of Trump. The public can't take 14 years of Trump. Not that way. Did you hear what I said? It's too much. It's a bridge too far. He's got to change the show.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. And I also agree with you. If I'm on the Republican side thinking about challenging Trump, I'm in no rush right now. I've got 3 months, maybe even 4, before I have to decide what I'm going to do on that. But I do believe there's going to be some challengers. I don't know whether it'll be, again, I'm not editorializing these names because everybody's talking about DeSantis. Normally, Joe, though, when you look back on history, the name they talked about first isn't always the guy who ended up challenging.
Nikki Haley will get in. She'll get in.
She'll get in. Mike Pompeo, maybe. Mike Pence, maybe. Glenn Youngkin, maybe.
Well, if they get in,
I'll give you another one. Larry Hogan out of Maryland, maybe.
What you'll see, though, is if they get in, probably right now, there'll be a new tactic by all these candidates. They're probably talking. And if they get in, I believe they would all get in and gang up on him in a way they didn't do in 16. And everything he does, it'll be a concerted effort, like CNN talking points and all the Democrats talking points. It's unconscionable that your president, and each one of them will say it on stage or in each comment. And he won't be able to hit all of them in a row if they decide that they're going to say, it's enough, Mr. President, please have some decorum. You're harming your, and they'll all say it. So every time they meet it, they'll have a prepared statement that will be the same.
Yep.
He can't divide and conquer them that way. Yep. He needs to change his game.
And he's got to figure out independents win elections, not base Republicans. All right, Joe, that's it for today. Again, I love our analysis. I know you do it a lot, and I think we're pretty spot on. We had some of our predictions were not as good as others, but we were a lot better than the mainstream media. And unfortunately, we were a lot better than a lot of Republican political pundits and pollsters. Joe, thanks for your commentary.
Thanks for having me.
See you soon.
Yep, bye-bye.
All right, folks, that's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a good evening. We'll keep cutting through the propaganda, and we'll see you on Wednesday.